How you doing, man?
Uh,
Trying this thing out. I was like, let's sell some books here.
I love it. That's amazing. Cheers.
Cheers, man. Sorry, it's just water, but it's 11 o'clock in the morning here, so a little early.
Water's good too. Water's good. And water, beer, coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not necessarily in that order, but yeah.
Yeah.
There's three.
Absolutely. Has it come
That's
through
pretty
the
good.
right way?
Yeah, I mean, I can see like
Sweet.
what the nice part is like I obviously got the logo up top, but I can see in Dan Seagrave's
Yeah.
little demon ball. I can
Yep.
see the little turtle guy who's always been my favorite out of them.
It's like
The little evil turtle
Yeah,
demon that's slithering out of something's mouth.
That's amazing. Yeah, I dragged it into Photoshop quickly and brought up the levels so that you could actually see the detail a little more in it. So so yeah, it's worked out pretty well. And I thought, better than just the room background. And I have the book here, but I was like, people aren't going to see that because I usually put myself up in the top corner. So yeah.
I love it. It just you turn on and then it just
Yeah. I should have given you some warning, but I was
Nope.
like, he's gonna dig the surprise.
like the Utopia Banished poster. Or
Yeah,
something.
I was about to say
Yeah.
that, and it's weird enough. I decided to wear my this is the first Napalm Death show that I bought in 2005 or whenever this tour was. So
Oh yeah, Code's Red. Yeah.
yeah. The code is red with I think they were on tour with Creator at the time.
Oh wow.
So
Was that through there?
sorry.
Through Australia? Was that through Australia or through LA?
That's when I first started living in Southern California. That was at the what's it called now? It's something to do with like the stars, not the planetarium, the observatory. Yeah, and back before that it was like the galaxy.
It was, yep.
Yeah. So seeing Napalm Death and Creator play that stage, I was just like, what the? It was so cool. Because everything in Australia was like
Yeah.
stuffed into a small club where you couldn't see. Like the stage was the same level as like the people, so it's like I'm short dude, so I can't see shit. So yeah.
Yeah, no, this is more of a California thing. I don't know if it's specific to the Los Angeles area, but it's definitely a California thing where they have like kind of those tiered
Yeah.
venues
Yeah.
where we don't those on the East Coast like
No.
that. It's really just like we go in and it's just the flat floor and
Yeah.
good luck with your sight lines.
Yeah.
But like the tiered spacing, that was something I only discovered when I started booking shows in California.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I mean,
I
the
know.
one thing that I really did like was I think it was a Decibel tour for Carcass, the Black Dahlia Murder, and Gorguts, where you put it on at the Best Buy Theater. I think that was what
In New York,
it was
yeah,
called. Yeah. And so like I walked in, and they had like the whole like seating section up there, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like you can crash out for a second if you need to. So
Yeah, why
that
not?
was awesome. I'm just gonna jump straight into some questions, man, and get this show on the road. And yeah, let's start off with the topic at hand, man. What do you think is sort of business for Decibel as the music world, touring, everything stops? Like, you've got a whole lot of things that probably can't happen right now, and yeah, I was just wondering to see like if you guys had any sort of plans or anything special lined up for this period of life.
Well, yeah, this period of life came at us somewhat unexpectedly. So we've been adjusting on the fly, much like everyone else. Obviously, we've been forced to postpone the Philadelphia edition of our Metal and Beer Fest, which will still happen. We just don't. We have the dates. We just can't announce them just yet. I'm hoping to be able to announce them like in a month.
Yeah.
The good news is we'll be able to preserve those sets, like those special sets from like Napalm Death and Pig Destroyer and Converge, and we actually have added some other crazy stuff
Awesome.
in addition to that.
That's
so
awesome.
so it'll be worth the wait when the world deems when the world is ready. Like.
Yeah.
It's no longer hyperbole to say the world is just not ready for this. No, the world literally is not prepared.
Yeah.
So when it is, we'll be able to roll it out. We had to do that. We had to cancel our annual tour, which was going to be in March and April. We're trying to resurrect that as we speak, even though it was canceled. We're just trying to bring the bands back next year,
yeah.
And then in addition to that, do another Decibel tour,
right?
So we can just because our 2021 tour, we want to roll that out next year in spring, summer, whatever.
Right.
When again, hopefully things are inhabitable for such events.
Yeah.
So obviously those are things we did not count on. So. We've been impacted just like pretty much every other business in the world. Ultimately, for us, it's a little different because we've been affected by the way this has impacted the record industry. A lot of record labels have decided to hold their releases until later in the year. And then by doing that, that means releases that were on the schedule that would have corresponding advertising booked with them.
Yep.
That also ends up getting pulled.
Yep.
So when that happens, that means our ad revenue is going to dip, which means we have to make adjustments. So we've done that. We've cut the page count. We have all taken pay cuts as austerity measures for the time being to get through this, and we've been forced to adjust our content in a way which has actually been kind of a happy accident in that the issue that we are working on now that'll go to print in a little over a week is a Decibel yearbook issue, which we are looking back 25 years on 1995, and basically just like going over that year with a fine-tooth comb, just talking about everything that was going on in that year, doing Hall of Fames related to that year, doing lists related to that year, cover stories related to that year. There's so many great genre-defining records of that year. And I don't think it's just when people talk about all these great years in the history of heavy metal, everybody likes to start in the 80s and then maybe stop in the early 90s and then that's it.
Yeah.
But when you actually sit down and look at what happened in 1995, it's fucking impressive.
And from Sweden, in my opinion.
Yeah, right? It's been a really fun exercise. It's been really it's a little bit of a nostalgia, a little bit of escapism. We really went super overboard with it. We changed our layout to look like Terrorizers in 1995.
Sweet.
We did these just this super nerdy stuff to kind of go all in with it. And that's something that I had no plans to do a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
You're reacting. You're trying to keep it interesting. I mean, the thing is, there still are records coming out.
Yep.
There's going to be just not as many. So I think that we'll still be able to publish, maybe a more traditional issue the month after that. I don't think that's a big deal at all.
Yep.
And the hope is that, maybe, a month down the line from that, things are maybe a little bit more back on track with with a release schedule starting to open up in, say, like September, October.
Yeah.
But, for us, it's like we obviously have a format that we generally stick to, but we've done a bunch of outside the box issues over the years that's kind of prepared us to be able to do stuff like that and execute it quickly, but not haphazardly.
Yeah.
So it's cool. I mean, there's other things that we're doing, like we're going to release. We have a book that was going to be on the schedule for the end of the year in November, and that's going to still stay on the schedule. But I think, I know we're going to do another Hall of Fame book. We did one of these like maybe 4 years ago.
Yes.
It was an anthology on 25 Decibel Hall of Fames, and we're gonna do another one and get it out hopefully before the end of the summer. But that's the kind of thing that, like, I wouldn't have had that. I hadn't planned on doing that this year, but things have opened up. Things have opened up time-wise to be able to execute something like that, and the reality of us, like, looking at it and going, all right, well, we need to make up some lost revenue due to some ad sales, some lost revenue due to a fest getting pushed back.
Yep.
LA is kind of up in the air right now. I can't say for sure if it's going to happen or not, just based on reading the tea leaves. Like, we have dates. I have most of the lineup booked. It's not been announced or anything, but, like, is it going to happen? Like,
time will tell.
It's not it's not something you can count on. So it's like, rather than kind of sitting back and hoping that rather than sitting back and hoping for the best case scenario, we decided to act like it's, we're going to deal with the worst case scenario and just, like, basically position ourselves to be able to kind of come out on the other side of this thing without any real issues. And for us, we're fortunate in that we do a lot of different things. So we have a lot of different potential revenue streams to make stuff up make up revenue when something kind of falls by the wayside. Yeah. So, we have, we've obviously had, like I said, had to adjust like every other business, but the nice thing is the history that we have and the disparate things that we already do puts us maybe in a better position than, I guess, a normal magazine would be in.
Absolutely. And I think people should know who are watching this, like, the level of detail and I guess care and reverence that you put into the Hall of Fame stuff, just because you picked up the Hall of Fame book. I've always, like, really, like, when you guys put out a piece that's, someone's made into the Hall of Fame, or this album's made into the Hall of Fame, it's just it's always amazing. So to have another one of those on the cards, I'm looking forward to that.
Cool. Yeah, no, the Hall of Fame is it's definitely one of the defining anchors, I think, of the magazine over the years. Like, obviously people view it with reverence, and it's important to them. I know, because I get a lot of emails about our decisions to put certain records into the Hall of Fame. But I like to think that people will be excited for it, because it's going to be 25 records. One of them will be a bonus Hall of Fame that hasn't been inducted yet, that won't be in the regular magazine scope. So we did one last with the last volume, where it was Demolic. We inducted their album in the book, and it's only in the book and not in the magazine. So basically the bonus tracks for people, so they can feel like it isn't just, I've read all these. So
that's really cool. I guess the next question is, through this time, what is the best way for people to support Decibel Magazine outside of straight out ordering a copy of the issue? Is there anything online that they can also do, like, to help generate ad clicks and everything like that? Is it just visiting the site as much as possible?
I mean, I want people. Here's the thing: like we provide a product, and people pay good money for that product already.
Yep.
So for me, it's like I'm happy that people are continuing to do that.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't ask, like I couldn't, like, at least certainly not right now. I couldn't imagine doing some kind of like GoFundMe or something like that, because people have been funding us the whole time.
Yeah.
And there's again the reality of the situation that we are gonna take a hit this year, but that's fine. We're built to withstand that, and we're not. I mean, a lot of magazines are vulnerable right now.
Yeah.
Whatever magazines are left, I don't even fucking know at this point. So like, I would imagine any print publication is exceptionally vulnerable right now.
Yeah.
So I understand people wanting to help, and that's awesome, and I appreciate it. To me, it's just like, if you were thinking about subscribing, now's a cool time. We won't let you down. We're doing everything that we've always been doing. And if anything, the truth of the matter is, with the live events being kind of put on the shelf at the moment, I have even more focus on the editorial than I have had over the past couple, at least the past 3 years,
yep.
Where at times I'm getting pulled in a million different directions.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's like fest logistics, beer logistics, booking logistics, whatever it is, that are, that have made their way into our production cycle. Those things aren't there right now. There's things that are happening, off to the side, but we're not worried about, like, if everybody's. I'm not placing orders for jockey boxes right now or anything like that for a it's like, these are things that are they're off the plate, so I can like really kind of.
Cool.
I feel like we can make the magazine even better, and the editorial better, and because it's still a small staff,
Yep.
Like there's 5 of us. That's it. So yeah, I would just say, like, now is a good time, not necessarily because not because anybody owes us anything, but because I feel like we're positioned to produce even better content than more.
Sweet, that's a good write-up right there. So in terms of the magazine, what would you say would be the covers that you never thought you'd get to do, but you got to do?
Man, I mean, I would say all of them. I never thought I'd get to a magazine.
Yeah.
But it's probably like a combination of the biggest bands and then some of the smallest bands. Like, obviously, like the fact, like, we did an Aussie cover a couple of years ago that I never imagined we'd be able to do, but we did, which was really cool. That was definitely a bucket list one for us. Jay Bennett did that.
Yep.
So,
hi, Jay.
You knew it would be entertaining. Yeah, hi, Jay. I'm sure he's watching. Not DJing somewhere. Well, he's not.
Yeah.
That's right. He's not DJing anywhere, is he? Unless he's virtually DJing. I suppose that's
probably
possible.
not. Hopefully not.
I don't know if Footsies has a bandwidth to allow for that. But so something like that. That's definitely something I never thought I'd be able to do. But honestly, when I started the magazine, I didn't envision. I didn't even envision putting like Slayer or Iron Maiden ever on the cover.
Yeah.
Because when I started it, I thought, like, hey, all these bands have been on the covers. Those bands have been on so many covers over the years of other magazines. Like, I want to run a magazine that's going to put Converge on the cover and be stuff like that. So when I started it, I had a legitimate aversion to even thinking like that. So, in some ways, like I never even imagined that we would do Slayer covers, and I mean, I don't know how many we did. Probably like 5, and Maiden covers. I'm sure we've done like 4 or 5. And I adore Iron Maiden; they're one of my all-time favorites. So it wasn't necessarily like these bands suck. It was more like, you know, everybody's done this. Let me try something else. But you know, there was trying to, like, those first couple of years, it was really kind of figuring out like what would work, because that was back when I gave a shit about the newsstand and I cared like what happened, like I hadn't. And then it was only a few years ago that I reached the point where I was just like, I don't care. I don't care if this sell-through is less than, you know, if we put Blood Incantation on the cover. I don't care that it's going to sell fewer copies on the newsstand than if we put Lamb of God on the cover. I do not care anymore.
Yeah.
And that's something that was kind of a liberating thing of a few years ago. But even beyond that, like I can remember some of the earlier kind of riskier covers. Like I think it was like 2006 or 2007. We put Pelican on the cover. We put Justin Broderick for a Yezu record on the cover in like 2006.
How did that go?
Yeah, it went as well as you would imagine. I always thought like those were the things I wanted to do. You know, like I wanted to be able to say, look, no, this is important. This is important. Take this seriously. Yeah. And for us, it was kind of cool because it's like we were still able to do things like put the Deftones on the cover or Maiden on the cover. But ISIS got their first cover from us in 2006.
Wow. Okay.
So, like, and those were things like, that was the thing, like, back then there wasn't any other magazine that would put ISIS on the cover.
No, definitely not.
So, yeah, so, like, I was excited to do things like that. And then it was like the first couple of years, like, kind of like just getting comfortable being able to do that. And then as the magazine grew, and then it was like just kind of sneaking stuff in.
Yeah.
Like I can remember, you know, it was like 2009. I'm going to do a Dark Throne cover. Let's see what happens. You know, and like our first Napalm Death cover was 2009. I held out 5 whole years before we got to our first Napalm Death cover.
Wow, I would have thought that you would have tried like within the first 2 for that.
Right? So like, yeah, so you know, you're feeling like, for me personally, it's like obviously what we do is a reflection of my tastes to an extent.
Yep.
But there are so many contributors, so many different voices that like it needs to be this kind of unified voice,
yep.
And it's not always going to be stuff that I'm like 100% backing.
Yeah.
So you're trying to kind of strike that balance for those first couple of years. But yeah, so it's I know it's a long-winded answer, but it's like a bunch of things that are all over the place. It's like Napalm Death is one of those bands.
Yep.
Paradise Lost, like we did a Paradise Lost cover like 8 years ago now. That was a big deal to me because I wrestled with it, where it was like, I want to do this. Does anybody else care? I don't know if they care, but they should, and they should, so we can do it. Yeah. You know, that's the logic, the way you begin to rationalize the decision.
But I think that speaks to the platform that you get to a certain point and you can afford those risks, if you want to call it that, to be able to go like, hey, you guys, you know, maybe the general demographic more so is looking for the stuff that's easily digestible and accessible, but, you know, every now and then, like, just a feature of something that I'd never heard of in, like, a Decibel or a Terrorizer or whatever magazine, like a Guitar World back in the day, and I'd be like, I never heard of that before, and like, let me check that out, and then it just changes your path. So you being able to roll the dice like that might open up a whole different gate for young kids or dudes stuck in their ways to go like, hey, I'm searching for something. And now I've got this whole Pandora's box of Spotify. Let's just actually like give it a try. It doesn't cost anything right now. So that's a really, really good thing that you actually like still take chances on that stuff, you know? You're not just making sure that it flies off the news rack.
Yeah, No, I think it's important, and I think that and like you said, like you get a little further in where you've established. I don't even want to use the word credibility, but like you've established at least a modicum of trust.
Yes.
That your readers are like they're like, okay, you said, you've been right with other stuff, so I'll check this out since you said this is important.
Yeah.
So it was more kind of getting to the point to be able to execute that, more that than necessarily like it's always been my dream to put artist X on the cover. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's cool. That's a great answer. The flexi disc. If my memory isn't smashed, I remember like the initial announcement was that you had somehow stumbled across some sort of flexi disc press printer or something like that. Is that what happened? How the hell did that happen? And I can only imagine 10 years from now, like just all these flexi discs are going to be worth absolute fortune.
They're worth what somebody's willing to pay for them. So, I mean, I guess as long as one person decides that they're worth something, I guess they're worth something. But, no, I mean, the funny thing about the Flexi series is that we started it it had been the tail end, right at the very end of 2010.
Yeah.
So we are coming up, this year will be the 10-year anniversary of the Decibel Flexi series, which is insane. But we had started talking about it back in 2007 because, to get back to those bands taking chances on early, in 2007, I put Pig Destroyer on the cover.
Yep.
For Phantom Limb, and that was their first. That was their first cover. And I, over the years, I've become good friends with Scott and Blake and Adams, all those dudes. They're pals. We don't live far from one another where I live in Virginia. It's like it's cool. But when I was talking to Scott was just like. He was, and bless him, because he was concerned about a Pig Destroyer cover's performance for us, and he posited the idea of maybe we can do something cool, like maybe you can find somebody who can make flexi discs, and we could record something quickly, and you could include it with the magazine. And I was just like, oh my god, that would be insane. Let me see if I can find somebody who makes flexi discs. So I got out there and I couldn't find anything. And it wasn't until nearly 3 years later that Pirates Press in San Francisco managed to acquire a flexi press and get it up and running.
That's awesome.
And I began a dialogue with them, and I'm like, here's my idea. I want to do this as kind of a monthly series. I want to make this like I feel like I can get enough bands on board with this to give us something to contribute to the series. And at first I was just concerned about the costs because it was new technology in a sense that there was a lot of startup that went into them basically rebuilding this machine and getting it in a position where it could crank out 5,000 flexi discs that we needed. Because that was the other thing, the volume that we needed wasn't like anything that most other people who would be toying with flexis. It was really like the kind of thing where it was like you would be hand pressing each one.
Yeah.
Like crank out a few hundred of a limited edition thing. Yeah. That was it. Yeah. But something for our volume, just you needed a more powerful machine. So I knew that there'd be more costs involved in that. So I remember working with Scion back when Scion was a car, which it no longer is.
It was a car, and then it was like a promoter for a minute.
Yeah, it was. It was a car and a promoter. And while for our purposes, while it was a promoter, it was pouring a lot of money into the metal scene. So I was just like, I have this idea. I think this is really cool. I think that like Scion could look at this and kind of get on board with this concept. So I reached out to them and I'm like, do you guys want to sponsor the Flexi series? Because for my mind, it was like, if I could get them to like put their name and logo on it and like give us some money for that, I can offset the costs of making this work. And they were like, yeah, we'll do one. And I was like, we'll do one and then we'll talk about doing some more. I was like, all right, I got to get it off the ground. So I was like, yeah, let's do one. So they sponsored the first one, which was Brutal Truth, re-recording Walking Corpse.
Wow.
And one other song that I believe was recorded during the Evolution through Revolution. Yeah, maybe it was End Time. I don't even remember, but it was sometime around there that they had the tracks, and they were like, "Yeah, we'll give you these. You take these for this." So we did it. We got it out, and then a few days later, I approached Scion again. I'm like, "All right, you want to do another one?" They're like, "No, I won't do that." I was like, "Great. Let me figure out how to make this work." So yeah, we absorbed all the production costs after that, and we were for a little while. I sold sponsorship rights to certain record labels or companies that would want to put their logo on a Flexi if it was like a band that they were involved with. Like if a merch company had a band, like Black Dahlia Murder's merch company, I'd approach them about like putting their logo on the Black Dahlia Murder Flexi disc and giving them an ad in the magazine for it to promote it, and that was a monthly task. But I was able to do that like that for several years, and I think we raised our subscription rates to kind of account for the production costs of it. Yep. Because it's thousands of dollars to get those, but we were able to make it work. And a few years ago, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago now, even it's been a little while. Holy Mountain Printing in North Carolina, who are this just fantastic T-shirt press. They stepped in and they became like the official sponsor for the Flexi series every month, and they've been doing it. What they give us doesn't nearly cover our production costs at all, but it helps, and they're great people, and to see their brand associated with it every time I see their logo on it, I'm like, that's right. Those people are like, and like the thing is like they're stoked. It's like, I'm like, guys, I got a fucking Neurosis Flexi. And he's like, holy shit. So like, that's what I want. Where with like Scion, it was like, I remember even the early discussions. I'm like, how would you guys feel if I if I asked Rotting Christ to do a Flexi disc, would that be an issue? And like, yeah, that's probably an issue for our brand. I'm like, okay. So like, I don't have any of. And again, it allows us to be who we are. We don't have to. With people who get who we are. Yeah. Let's do our thing, and their thing is our thing. Essentially, it isn't. Yeah. It's symbiotic in that sense. So yeah, that's, to my knowledge, Pirates Press are still the only Flexi producer who can do something at the volume that we needed. Yep. They moved their machine to the Czech Republic about 6 years ago. Yep. And it's like it's in the Czech Republic that they're actually pressed and then sent back over here and inserted into the magazine. But we've been with them the whole time, and they're awesome, good dudes, and they work their asses off, and they're in San Francisco, so they've been locked down longer than pretty much anybody else in the United States right now. Yeah. So it's rough for them. So I'm happy that we can I mean, the thing is, they're not physically pressing these now. Like they get done in the check. Like I work with those guys. I'm like, all right, here's the files. Here's when I need them, and it's just like they're able to get the stuff running, and we're able to continue to do it. They're able to see some income from it.
That's
throughout what's going on. So it works out nicely. You know,
because I've been super scared that pressing plants might dwindle down to essentially like skeleton amounts due to this whole thing just probably collapsing a very, it's day by day the pressing industry sort of exists.
It is. There's certain stuff is shut down and is affecting some labels. I think that it's going to be spotty for at least a couple more months.
Yeah.
I mean, for us as a magazine, we're very fortunate because our printer has been deemed essential, so
Fantastic.
they get to stay open and run. And it is essential because how else are you going to find out if New Shitfucker album is like a 7 or an 8 if Decibel isn't running? Like, oh. This is clearly an essential operation, but seriously, we're very fortunate in that that we're able to continue to remain in production when again a lot of other people are not going to be as lucky.
Absolutely. You've had like a really 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 awesome run of Decibel tours. What are some of the stories of like the success of them, and some horror stories of trying to book and or keep the show running on the road? Some heaven and hell.
Well, I mean, the very first one I remember was 2012, and it was In Solitude, who I am still representing with a very gray shirt to this here. The Devil's Blood, Watain, and Behemoth. And I don't even remember what the reason was, but Watain couldn't get into the country for like the first 2 or 3 shows. And it was just like immediately, it's like, all right, I guess this is how this is going to go for as long as we're doing it. But, I mean, we're without giving too much away, we've been very, very, very fortunate to not have any real disasters. Honestly, the cancellation of this year's tour has really been the worst thing that's ever happened. But
right.
I can't whine or complain about it. Everybody's dealing with the same thing. So it's not like we were singled out. So like that takes the sting out of that in a sense. I mean, there's some things. I think the 2015, the year we had At the Gates, Converge, Pallbearer, and Valenfire. Mm-hmm. And Valenfire was a band that was fronted by Greg McIntosh of Paradise Lost, who's a friend of mine, and I essentially did the booking through him to have them to have them be as part of the tour because they didn't necessarily have a booking agent. So basically it was like Paradise Lost's manager was helping him out on the side with it, but not paying close attention,
right.
I guess, to like what they needed. And when they got here, like they literally thought that they were getting paid like $400 more a night than they were getting paid. So like they were just like, we can't afford to stay here. And then it was just like, all right, well, here, just take some money so we can finish this fucking tour.
Yeah.
And so, there's things like that. It wasn't, no one was being malicious. It was just
lost in the melee.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, you would have things like that. And, I mean, the thing about the tour is it runs really, really well because I'm not, the way it works is like, I have a partner with the tour, is a booking agent by the name of Nick Storch.
I love it.
Who, who I work with. Yeah, Nick. I've worked with Nick the entire life of the tour. I can't imagine doing it with anybody else. He's a good friend, and he and I work really well together. And with the actual nuts and bolts routing stuff, like that's all Nick. Yeah. Like I get to be with the tour. I get to do all the pretty stuff. I get to like do the curation,
right?
You know, develop the assets, the look, the marketing, like all that stuff.
Yep.
I mean, occasionally I have to talk bands into stuff, but like but the nuts and bolts of like, all right, here's how it's routed, here's the budget, like that's Nick for that. With the festival, I do that independently. Like Nick's not involved in that. I do all that shit. Right. So it's not. I don't want anybody to think that I'm getting a free ride. But Nick is responsible for a lot for that stuff, and that's the reason why I don't have a lot of horror stories.
Yeah.
Because
he's amazing.
He's a professional.
He's absolutely amazing.
So like
top tier.
So for us, yeah, exactly. I'm super fortunate. So that's when you say like, oh, what are some of the like, crazy, horrible, terrible things? There aren't many because it's like because Nick has it under control.
Yep.
I mean, it's funny. It's like us arguing about what should be on the tour and what shouldn't. That's something I enjoy. And we were literally today we were talking about the lineup for 2021. Again, if the world is ready for it, which I think it will be by the time that we have that together. But like our headliner and our main support they're by no means confirmed, but we're talking to both of them, and it would be a really, really fucking cool combination. I think people would be insanely stoked on. Amazing. So the tour will rise again, and when it does, it'll be everything that everybody kind of has come to expect from what we do.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. Choosing Death, Decibel sort of came around the same time. Did one influence the other? Obviously, like there was much research to be done for Choosing Death. This particular book, if no one's read it, go buy a copy, go read it. It is like the one. To go off on a little tangent, I think it was like about this time last year where I was just posting like death metal clips on Instagram, and I said like I hope one day, and I was being really absent-minded when I said this. I said I hope one day that there is like a monument to death metal, because I feel like it was like just overshadowed by a lot of different things that sort of like sparked up around it, and it's sort of like untimely, quick fuse into odd eras of music. But yeah, I said I really hope that there's like a monument at some point, and I woke up to a comment where you were like, "That's what choosing death is," and I was like, "Fuck, I didn't even think of that like that." And so yeah, like ever since I've been like, yeah, it really fucking is. Like this book and the Swedish death metal book are like really the monuments to what I consider to be like one of the most solid genres of music that has ever come out, and without sensationalism, managed to keep its artistic integrity of the glory era and still producing really cool stuff. So anyway, to get back to the question at hand, did Decibel sort of like come out of like the pace that you would sort of set in terms of research? Did you go like, hey, I think I'm onto something here, let me try to put together a magazine perhaps?
No, but to back up, thank you for the kind words about choosing death, and honestly, that was my impetus in writing it. I am 1,000% sure it was Daniel's impetus in writing Swedish death metal.
Yeah.
Like just not allowing people to forget about this stuff, how important it was, how it impacted me. I know how it impacted him, and just making sure that history wasn't lost as time wore on. Because when I started working on Choosing Death, it was 2002, and death metal was not in a great spot. I mean, extreme metal wasn't in a great spot at that point, you know. But the idea of, I mean, honestly, like, Choosing Death was something that it was an idea that I had as early as 2000, but I didn't really get moving on it into 2002 because it was just kind of too daunting of an undertaking for me in my early 20s.
No doubt.
But yeah, little did I know that that's the only time you can write a book when you have that. But the truth is, it's like my history is I've worked for the same publishing company since 1997,
right.
and I while I was the editor of kind of more general audience magazines in the 90s, I still handled all of the heavy metal stuff, like all the heavy metal coverage in it, and did all the writing for that. I would get to write about other things too, like I'd get to interview Radiohead or Moby or
right.
I don't know, like non-metal stuff too. But for me, it was always like, all right, here's my 2 pages of metal coverage where I get to really make sure that this Cathedral review gets in there, or this Neurosis review, feature is in there, whatever it is. So I had this magazine experience in that sense, and the publisher who still owns the company, he and I were friends. There was a period of time where we were the only 2 people who were the employees, and like I was the one employee that he had in 1997, which is me and him.
Yeah.
So we go way back, and he knew me pretty well, and he always thought, I always thought that I could potentially do an extreme music magazine, because I felt in America in particular that there was a void for a niche extreme metal publication. Metal Maniacs was still around, and I grew up reading that and was a big fan of that. But there wasn't anything else really in America that I thought kind of catered to extreme metal. And Maniacs, God bless it, just it always had kind of that zine quality to it, which for me was that was an endearing thing to me. But it was probably about 94 or 95 that I discovered Terrorizer, and when I got my first few copies of that, I was just like, oh man, we need something like that over here.
Yeah.
So I had all in my head, I had this desire to create this I don't want to say U.S. version of Terrorizer, but something that took from Metal Maniacs' genuine enthusiasm for things and had the refinement that Terrorizer had during that mid-90s period of it, and some kind of combination of that with kind of a U.S. attitude and irreverence kind of mixed in with it.
Yeah.
So that magazine, Decibel, had been in my head for ages, but we were never in a position to do it as a company. So that's that's all kind of happening in one part here, and then Choosing Death was its own, was just completely independent of that. It was just all right, well, I'm going to finally start on this book idea, and the way it all just kind of worked out was I got the book deal with Feral House. I think it was 2003, and then the way things used to work back when there were bookstores and the book publishers, like they would need. You would turn in the completed manuscript and all the files. Like I worked with my own designer. We did the entire layout of Choosing Death. I had publishing experience, so I was like, I know how to work with all these desktop publishing programs. I'll edit it on the desktop publishing program. I'll give you print-ready PDFs. You just fucking send them to print and don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And surely Feral House were like, oh, we don't have to pay anybody for that? Thank you. No problem. Do whatever you want. So I was able to execute that and kind of finish that probably like no later than the very beginning of 2004.
Right.
And I did not get the green light on Decibel until I would say probably like early summer 2004.
Right.
So there is like, there's this gestation period of like, Choosing Death is done and there's nothing I can do about it because it's just going to come out when it comes out, when they get them printed and shipped and whatever the process was to get them in every Barnes Noble in the U.S. at the time. So like there was never this intention for them to necessarily kind of come out at the same time like they did. It just kind of wound up that way. But I do think that Choosing Death helped get Decibel off the ground in one particular way, in that I had, like I said, I had been writing about metal and running a magazine, a smaller, thing that wasn't on a national level for many years. So I had all these industry contacts established, and people knew I was working. A lot of those people knew I was working on Choosing Death. The deal with Feral House had been announced, whatever it was. So like people took me seriously. That when I said like, hey, I'm going to do this magazine and it's going to come out here and this is what it's going to be, their initial reaction wasn't just like, oh yeah, whatever, man, everybody's going to do their magazine, let's believe when they see it. But like so like I knew who to go to, I knew who to talk to, and they knew who I was and they knew what I had done previously. So they were open to the idea of me saying, look, you guys gotta support this thing that I'm going to do. It's going to be awesome. And I mean, we even did. We did a prototype issue. This is the type of Decibel 1 that was just like something that was like, it was printed on like a high quality paper, and it had like the ads in it. This is fucking sweet. The ads in it were just like ads that I like scanned out of like fucking Guitar World.
Oh wow!
Like there's an ad for a Panasonic car CD player with a detachable face.
I remember those.
Yeah, right. There's an ad for some Tony Hawk video game or something. And then like there's ad rates, like whatever. But this was like this piece, and like we printed up like, I don't know, probably anywhere from like 500 to 1,000 of them, and like sent them to every like industry person we could think of. Yep. So like people would get this, they would know who I was from working on them in the past. Some of them would know me from Choosing Death, and in that's kind of how they were able to build off one another in that sense. Right. And then they both ended up, the first issue of Decibel and Choosing and the first copies of Choosing Death came out in September of 2004. So they ended up just kind of coming out at the same time.
Your mind must have been blowing up at that time. I'm like, oh my god.
Yes. Yeah. So, but it was cool because it was like, people would like, they would get the book, and I'd be doing interviews about the book, and I could be able to talk about the magazine.
Yeah.
Or I'd be printing, we'd send the magazine to print. We could put an ad for the book in the magazine because we knew like even though we didn't publish the book was, well, back then we didn't publish the book, but the book was like, that version of the book was through Feral House. It was still like, I knew that was like every hit for Choosing Death was a hit for Decibel, and every hit for Decibel was a hit for Choosing Death, and that. So yeah, it wasn't. If I knew what I was doing, it would have been a stroke of a marketing genius and planning. But I certainly did not. That was not my intention. It just it worked out nicely.
Yeah, it worked out really nicely.
Yeah.
I think this question basically like spawns from after talking to Oliver Safstrom for I think like about 4.5 hours. I love him, and he can talk under wet cement. It's the best. But basically, like, to put it in perspective, the way that you titled the book was that it was an improbable history, which when I first saw the book on the shelf and I saw that, it sort of like struck me. I hadn't thought about it in that way, and I was only like 19 or 20 at the time, and I was like, hey, you know what? Like, it's not a given that this genre of music should be anything other than like a footnote on like like the thrash metal Metallicas of the world and things like that, and, and then there was like a bunch of maniacs doing it 10 times faster and lower tuned, it's like, and so the fact that you sorry?
I was gonna say it could easily have ended up being like the a footnote under like funk metal.
Oh.
Like oh yeah, yeah, there was this period where thrash did some funk stuff, and then they did some deathy stuff, and then all that shit went away, and everybody forgot about that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so the first time that I saw the title, I remember like going, like, I gotta buy this thing because I've never thought about it that way. Yeah, it really like is such a fucking sandblasting machine that like even to this day, like I put on Obituary, and I think of Obituary these days as almost like rock and roll, because it's so much more easily digestible than anything else. And then like, someone who doesn't listen to that is sitting to the side, and they're like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, Jesus Christ. And you're just like, oh yeah, I forgot this is actually still death metal. So yeah, putting it in perspective like that, it's fucking improbable. Like I thought that was like a really cool way to put it in context, and Ova in the podcast I did with him in his roundabout way, like really put that into perspective as well. He was like fucking Entombed, like they didn't even sign the earache contracts. It was their parents. They were all 16 and 17. I was like, oh my god, I had no idea that they were like, I knew that they were around 18, but I didn't realize that like, their parents are signing the earache contracts. So, just the fact that you reached that point where sorry?
Their parents didn't have lawyers either, apparently.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, but just...
I gotta get my digs in. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just the fact that you landed on that for the title, just to put the book in that context was really awesome. So what was it that when you were compiling all the interviews and putting it all together and trying to create the narrative in your way, what was it that struck you, or was that the mindset you had going into it to go like, this is weird? It shouldn't have existed, perhaps?
For me, that was definitely the mindset that I had going in, that it's the story arc itself for the style of music, for how aggressive the music was, and then the story arc of like, okay, yeah, of course, it starts out as a strictly underground thing. How it gets up, how it makes some waves where it's actually selling enough records on independent record labels that major labels come sniffing around and get involved. Like at that, like, because it's crazy enough when it goes from like the demo stage to somebody who are like, yeah, we'll put this out and see what happens. And then these, the independent label that is rewarded for taking the risk, and then all of a sudden they're like, holy shit, people are buying these records. What's going on? And like at that point, it's already fucking crazy.
Yeah.
But when like Irving Azoff, who's like the manager of the Eagles, like steps in and says, you know who I want on my imprint in America, my imprint Giant Records, when I'm not managing the Eagles or Van Halen or Jewel, you know what I want to do? I want to put out Morbid Angel records. like that's fucking insane.
Yeah.
Like, and like all of that stuff. So like that to me, like that part of the history and the arc of like this idea that there were people at record labels who were paid tons and tons of money to figure out what the next big thing was in the post Nirvana era of the pop music landscape, where it turned into like, I mean, and obviously it wasn't just limited to death metal and extreme metal, like, bands like the Melvins having major label deals and then a bunch of other like bands that aren't even worth mentioning having major label deals as a result of everybody kind of looking for that next Nirvana or that thing that was going to be the next subgenre, like post-grunge, whatever it was. So like all of that, to me, that was nuts.
Yeah.
And like, and honestly, the idea that it like that stuff essentially failed to break to that next level that it would need to hit to necessitate it continuing with Sony Music money backing or whatever. Like to me, that kind of makes sense. Then the arc makes a little more sense of the story where it kind of goes back underground. But the fact that like it doesn't die off completely and that it manages to, even by like just the first version of Choosing Death by like around 2004, how it manages to stabilize as a legitimate like underground creative force, and manages to like get back up enough in a commercial sense that there's a whole entire scene of record labels that exist to promote and release the music of it. So it was already like by that point, like there was, to me, the idea of it being improbable was pretty clear. But then like what happened after Choosing Death came out was even more crazy in some ways. Like the idea of the bands, like the bands that were the progenitors that had either broken up or had lost integral members over the years, like reuniting with those members or reuniting completely, and then coming back and being bigger than they were the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some of them, and a number of them making this music is vital now as it was back then the first time around, which is what led me really to want to do the revised and expanded version that came out a few years ago, because to me that was just like, it was just like the story clearly didn't stop in 2004. So for me it was like I wanted the opportunity to be able to in addition to correct some things that I felt were either inaccurate or I didn't get to spend as much time on as I should have.
Right on.
Because I didn't really know what the fuck I was doing. Like then, like to have that opportunity to like improve that, for me, it just seemed like, if I could do this, awesome. Let me see if I can do this. And I was fortunate enough to be able to do it. But yeah, so like you said, like the word improbable, even in the first edition, there was so much in the history that was unlikely and crazy, that I think it earned that adjective.
Yeah,
I guess
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Especially just I've put that out just for the fact that, like, you know, sometimes seeing a book that's too worshipy and a little less investigative is not the greatest read, but, you know, it came from such a curious stance of, like, how and why, you know, like that. I always found that, like, really fascinating. So I thought that was a cool facet to explore. So
yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, for me, like my age, like I was a teenager when those records were hitting.
Mm-hmm.
Like in 1991, like in 1991, I bought Cause of Death, which was a year old at that point. But that's when I got it, and like it just blew my mind completely. So I was a fan for several years. So I followed that as it was happening. So I knew the basics of, like, oh, they tried to do this and it didn't work. But, like, the actual, like, the very specifics of the story and the characters and how it all came together, I didn't know. It was, like, literally, like, I mean, I would remember, I would say 75% of the interviews that I did, I would get off the phone and it would just be like, holy fuck. Now I got to talk to these, like, 5 other people I've never heard of in my life, because they were just integral to this process of this all coming together.
Yeah.
And there was just, it was fun for me. It was just like revelation after revelation in that sense. So I was learning the story. I felt like I was, like, just,
yeah.
Even though I was a fan and I thought I knew the story, like, I didn't really until I just, like, you know, got under the hood in that sense. Absolutely.
And I mean, that leads me on to, like, another facet that I was really curious about, like, and that's a good sort of broadening of it, in that you're trying to do this, you know, through the early to mid 2000s. There's no Skype, there's no YouTube to sort of, you know, everyone now is able to talk about the history and everything like that. There's probably limited text online. You're probably still really having to actually call people per se. It's probably not very easy to track down someone's email. Like, as you're trying to put this together, like, what was it like trying to get a hold of people at the time? And then once you did have them, and, you know, you had no, as we all do now, we have, like, some sort of social media presence. You can, like, go, like, is this guy, like, some sort of maniac, or is he, like, a punisher or whatever? What was it like trying to wrangle these stories, or, like, even just get people's time?
The key back then was the art of the referral, where you could, like, if you got somebody and they could kind of vouch for you that you weren't that crazy person that should be taken seriously, they should take that call or answer that email. That was the key. That was super important. But you are right in that making these contacts pre-social media was a lot different. It was a much bigger challenge. And, like, I mean, kudos to anybody who's writing a book now who can, like, just, like, type in somebody's from some long forgotten band, type in their name and, like, get their contact information.
Yeah.
In a second. And I'm not begrudging anyone that, because, you know what, for us, for our purposes, for getting Decibel Hall of Fames together, it makes things a bit easier. I'm not gonna lie. I'm happy, even though I didn't have that technology at my fingertips 17 years ago. I'm happy it exists now for us.
Yeah. Truly.
But yeah, no, it was hard. You would get one contact, and the hope is that contact would be in touch with somebody else, or know somebody who is in touch with somebody else, so you can get that email or you can get that phone number. It was a lot of cold calls. There's some that I distinctly remember. I remember Chris Reifert from Autopsy did not have an email address, did not have a computer.
Probably still doesn't.
Yeah, but he does that. But he took an answering machine that I had to leave messages on to get him, and then you're hoping, like, that this guy just was like, who the fuck is calling me about Autopsy in 2002? Like, what is,
Yeah.
like, why, hoping that, like, they call back, and they would, and then when they would, you'd, like, try to work out a time, like, how's this day at this time for you? And then, like, all right, I'll call you, blah, blah, blah. But it was a lot of cold calls. Like, I distinctly remember, like, I had gotten in touch with a fellow named Martin Nesbitt, who was Carcass's manager back the first time around in the heyday, and also Fudge Tunnel's manager, if I'm remembering correctly back then. But previous to that, he'd worked at Earache in Nottingham with Digby,
Right.
and he had left. And I maybe it was Dig that got me his contact information, how I got in touch with him, but I got in touch with Martin, and Martin was still friendly with, like, Jeff Walker. And, again, it's 2002, Carcass is just not a thing that anybody would think was would be a thing for any reason. So I did an interview. I got Martin's contact, told him what I wanted to do, did a great interview with him. He was like, yeah, here's Jeff's email, or here's Jeff's number, give him a call. So I'm like, all right, I'll call Jeff Walker. Sure, no problem. So I call, and I get his answering machine, which I distinctly remember at the time was... There's an episode of Seinfeld where George Costanza has an answering machine outgoing message, which is him singing to the tune of The Greatest American Hero.
Yeah.
The Believe It or Not, I'm Walking on Air.
Yeah.
But it was George Costanza singing, Believe it or not, George isn't at home. Where could I be? Like that. That was Jeff Walker's outgoing answering machine message. So, like, of course, you get hit with that, and you're like, okay, that's not what I'm expecting, startled. So, like, I leave, like, I try to do a concise, I have my shit together kind of message for this guy, and I leave him this message, tell him what I'm trying to do, leave my phone number, but, like, I'm like, look, I know you don't want to call internationally, here's my email address, please just drop me a line, schedule something, I'm happy to call. And then, like, 15 minutes later, I get an email from Jeff Walker that just says, sorry, I was hoovering when you called. I'm happy to do whatever you want to do. And it was, for me, it was just funny to imagine Jeff Walker vacuuming as somebody, as, like, because it's like, because it's the other thing you have to remember, like, I don't know, at this time, I don't know these people, and there's still these, like, kind of mythical figures in my head. Yeah. So, as, many years that I have got to know them and spend so much time with them and, know them as people and consider them friends, like, it's funny to think back of the way you imagine them. But, like, yeah, Jeff, so for me, it was just, like, it was inconceivable that Jeff Walker would be vacuuming. And believe me, I'm sure he continues to vacuum many years later.
We can only hope.
But that was it was a really I don't want to say it's a more organic way to contact people or communicate with them. But the thing was back then is if you got some old school death metal guy's phone number or email, and they had not contacted you before, they didn't know who you were, they at least knew that you had made an effort to track them down. And if you had made that effort, I think they kind of knew you were serious about what you were doing. So it isn't so much like, I'll get, like, I don't want to even imagine how many emails I've gotten during the course of this conversation that will be people who can just search Decibel Magazine and get my contact information in a millisecond and shoot me any query they want about anything they want for their band or would like me to do. That's a much different world where, and that's the world people need to do that stuff to make things happen. I get it. I'm not I'm not begrudging them of that, but it's a much different setup. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Where
absolutely.
It's a lot clearer that it's not as clear that they've done work to get in touch. So to answer your question in a long rambling manner, I do think that that helps. That helped people at least know that they were like talking to someone. Like if somebody made that effort to get a hold of them, they weren't doing it for something that they didn't believe was going to happen.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, like you touch on Jeff, but at the time, I think Scott Carlson had short hair, probably around that time, around the early 2000s and everything. Yeah, wow. So what was it like? I mean, because I hold Scott above most nearly anyone else on the planet.
You should.
Yeah, absolutely. but what was it like? Did you call him too? Like what was it like speaking to him for the first time? If you can remember.
I mean, I do remember. I mean, he's always just like such a gracious guy.
Truly.
That I do remember. Here's the other thing that and this speaks to a lot of these guys who were in bands that weren't active at the time, or I mean Scott was active musically, but I think Repulsion was maybe just starting. Like when I started talking to him, I don't even think they did the reunion thing in Milwaukee yet or anything. I think it was before that.
About 2004 or something, I think.
Yeah,
somewhere around there.
So I think it predated that. So, I do remember just a genuine surprise that anybody was writing this book was the thing that I kept getting from people. Like, really?
Yep.
This deserves a book? Just like, yes. Like, I couldn't believe that the book hadn't existed already. That was part of the impetus for me too, where it was just like, how is this not a fucking thing? You know? How am I going to win this race? How is it that I'm going to win this race to get this book out? That nobody else wrote this already?
Yeah.
That's fucking nuts. So that's where my mind was. And these dudes were just like, why would anybody write that book? So, you would have to like kind of break down, like explain, like, this is important. And I think it was like, I think they, obviously they understood that a few people had said that to them over the years, but probably nobody who was trying to document it in a serious manner. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it was cool because I don't necessarily think they looked at it as like, oh, this is my shot to tell my story, as much as it is like, this guy seems invested in this idea. Maybe he'll actually get it out. So yeah, sure, I'll do this.
Cool.
It was like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. You probably ran, from Florida to Sweden in terms of personalities. What were the most surprising outlooks as you were putting together a book with extreme music and extreme personalities? Like, what sort of blew your mind in terms of like how people treated you or viewed things? Like, was there some great revelations that brought down some of the mythical pedestals that maybe people sat on, or that albums or areas of the world sat on?
Well, it definitely demystified things, but in a good way, where it's not like necessarily the demystification of like something like black metal, where you see like what a fucking chode somebody like Vard Kernest is, where that's like a sad, horrible demystification.
Yeah.
Whereas like these like learning that somebody like Jeff had a great sense of humor, and was just really sharp and funny and didn't take himself terribly seriously. And getting to know people like just like Scott, like just how warm they would be, and that doesn't come through necessarily on the records and maybe a lot of the interviews that you would have had in the 90s. And so much time had passed that they had changed too. So I don't necessarily think that there is like a certain figure that like blew my mind in that sense. I mean, there's funny things like talking to Glenn Benton, like how fucking fun Glenn Benton was. Like there's, I'll give you, and like I've told some people this story to this day. Every time I tell them, I'm like, how did I not get this in the fucking book? Like talking to Glenn Benton, and we're talking about him being a dad. Again, remember, this was like 18 years ago or whatever. And he's talking about his son, Damien, who, I don't know, maybe at that point will be like, Damien's probably like 10 or something, And I'm like, so what's it like, you being like, Dad Benton? Like, what's like, how do you balance that with like, and he's like, it's just like any other dad. He's like he wants to rebel. So when he's rebelling, he says stuff like, "Dad, I'm going to go to church," and Glenn Benton says, he's like, so I said to him, "Go ahead, you're going to be bored," and that was like it. Just like how like that is like. That is actually like a great response. If you're Glenn Benton and your child is threatening to go to church and your response is, "Go ahead, you're going to be bored." Like that isn't like some like fucking like immediately like totally just like blowing that kid up right there. It was completely diffusing the situation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's like instances of things like that like I wouldn't have imagined. Like I wouldn't have imagined things like just like personalities like Mick Harris as Mick Harris, and like there's a lot to unpack there. That's probably its own fucking podcast, dude. Trust me.
Honestly, I would love to talk to that dude.
You can talk. I do remember that, I do remember going through the transcriptions back then, and I would ask a question. I'd ask one question, and there would be like 4,000 words from Mick before there was like a second question asked.
Yes.
I mean, it was great because it would just be, he could tell the story and like obviously had very clear memories of things, but yeah, definitely an intense dude. But I mean that in a great way, because without his intensity, Napalm doesn't propel where it goes without him. So
absolutely.
And yeah, like, but anyway, it's more things like that than like, oh, like this guy was a dick, or this guy was drunk, or this guy, I mean, it was just more like this overall, this overarching feel of just like the people involved in the project, all generally speaking, being down to earth. Because anybody who will talk to you for an interview ultimately, like about things like this, about. I mean, the majority of the bands weren't active at the time, and the ones that were not in their strongest periods in terms of in terms of commercial prominence.
Yeah.
So everybody who did it, they weren't. I mean, they were humble, but they weren't humbled. You know what I mean? They were just generally like cool. So I don't have a lot of the that's what a nightmare it was talking to that guy. Yeah. It was sometimes the nightmare getting in touch with people, getting in touch with John Peel. I remember that was that was difficult because his agent was running interference for a long time.
Right.
And when I eventually like broke through and like the agent relented and like gave me John Peel's phone number, and then I called him and started talking to him. He was just like the fucking coolest guy you could imagine. And he literally was just like, you ever need anything? He's like, just call me. He's like, don't call the agent, just pick up the phone, call this number.
That's amazing.
And I was just like, okay, cool.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Peele.
So like, but that's like, to me, that's the overarching defining characteristics of everybody in that book. Even though there are people who are like, you know, stars in a sense, like even Irving Azoff, who I mentioned earlier, the guy who ran Giant Records. I remember I never spoke with him one-on-one. It was like he would answer questions via email. But what I also distinctly remember is like the emails would not come from him directly. They would come from somebody whose signature read second assistant to Mr. Irving Azoff.
Right. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But you can imagine that, right?
Yeah, but he answered the questions, you know, like, and he was helpful, and like clearly he had shit to do. Like, I mean, he was managing at the time like some of the biggest pop stars on earth.
Yep.
And some schlep was like, this guy wants to talk about Morbid Angel. I mean.
Oh, he must be talking about that fellow that had his shirt off in the videos a lot.
Right. Exactly.
That's really cool. I guess the repress and the expanded version that you did, you know, I think what was it, like 2 or 3 chapters that you added on there, and like probably from what I remember there were like little bits and pieces taken out or corrected through the book. It was really cool to put that in perspective of how it really touched on today's bands or the bigger bands that, you know, in the last, what has it been, like 16 years since the book actually came out. And that you actually featured a bunch of Finnish bands too. So I thought that was really cool that you were able to give it like some perspective on how it still is like a push for a lot of things today, because I think without that it doesn't tell the full story. So I was really stoked when I think I just moved back to LA from New York, and Scott put the book underneath my nose as soon as I walked into his house, and he's like, check it out, I got the forward on this one. I'm like, holy shit. So yeah, he was particularly stoked on that. So
The funny thing is about the forward was my wife, who knows Scott and Aaron really well, and he's friends with them also. She was the one who was just like, I believe it was her idea. She's like, you know, shove Scott, see if Scott will write the forward, like a new forward. And I was like, geez, I never thought of that. That's a great idea. And you know, he wrote an incredibly flattering forward, which I do not deserve, but he wrote it, so I'm going to run it in there. It felt really cool to have that be a part of it, and somebody like Scott, who is a dear friend, but not just a dear friend, but somebody who I respect as a musician and as a person and as a pillar of this movement, like just all of that kind of coalescing, and then having him being able to do that, it was just perfect. And again, it's all. I take no credit. It's my wife's idea completely.
That's awesome. Yeah, and just for people out there who don't know Scott Carlson all that well, he is the way that he speaks and writes is so eloquent. It's ridiculous. It's like it's almost like, I think him and John Baisley are cut from the same tree in that regard. So they both have that way of like speaking where you just like stop what you're doing and listen. So I really respect both those guys a lot. So, the next question that I have is, MDF was once, like super powerful at like, bringing bands back together and like making them play some sort of fantastic set lists or something like that. But, I feel like that festival's kind of fading out a little bit. But in recent years, with how well the Decibel Metal and Beer Fests are going, you're like able to poke at wasp nests and go like, hey, this album that you don't really play too much from, or like that I feel was pretty monumental. How about playing the whole album back to front, or like how about like injecting a whole bunch more of that sort of stuff in there? Like, what's it like putting those questions to bands?
It's all about the approach, obviously.
Yeah.
But also, what I have to say is that I have been to MDF every year since I think 2008.
Yeah.
And those guys just do such an insanely fantastic job. Like what they have accomplished independently of anybody else blows my mind.
Yeah.
Like they do awesome shit and they continue to do awesome shit. And things like Decibel Metal and Beer Fest, we couldn't do something like this without the groundwork that they kind of paved. You know what I mean?
Truly.
Like allowing like bands from our scene of that size to play events in America of that size.
Yeah.
So, all complete credit to them, and I look forward to Memorial Day 2021 when I can be back there and see those dudes and see fucking Dismember.
Hell yeah.
So, but to answer your question, I'm fortunate again in that I have direct relationships with a lot of these people, these bands, just from whether it's doing Choosing Death or doing Decibel or doing both for so long, that they know who I am and that they know that my intentions are pure in a sense, that I'm not like, what's going to get asses in the seats? This band doing this set, it comes out of a genuine nerd enthusiasm from me of like, oh, it'd be fucking awesome if Obituary all of Cause of Death. Can you fucking imagine that? And like the fact that like I am a nerd in a position to go to Obituary and be like, dudes, do you want to do all of Cause of Death? Would you do that? And like yeah, fine, okay. I am incredibly fortunate to be in the position I am in, and that they take these requests seriously, and that we have built an event that they realize is something that they would want to do this at. Because that's the other thing too. It's like you can throw tons of money at somebody, not that we have it to throw at anybody, but if you're like, I don't know, if you're another fest, maybe on the West Coast, per se, and like you have deep pockets, you can get bands to do stuff. But for us, it was just like, I want this to be cool and fun, and I want anybody to know that any set I'm asking for is because like it's because I'm a fan.
Yeah.
It's because I'm a fan, and that's what I would want to see. And again, like the fact that so many of these dudes are friends of mine, whether it's guys in Converge or Pig Destroyer or Napalm Death or Enslaved or fucking Tom G Warrior, like these are like right, and like they know that it isn't like it isn't just I'm trying to capitalize on that. I mean, obviously, like from an event perspective, you need a headliner that's going to work.
Yeah.
But by the same token, like we can get other bands that would fill it, but that's not what I want to do. It's really cool. Don't get me wrong. I mean, like the things that like I've seen. Like, I mean, I can think about the Obituary Cause of Death set and get goosebumps. I can think about the Triptychon Celtic Frost set in LA a couple of years ago, and that was just
like. I mean, I couldn't even imagine like if I had set that up about 15 minutes before they went on stage. I would have told like all friends and guests and everything. I'd be like, all right, everyone's gonna fuck off right now. I'm just gonna stand here and watch this shit in like silent glory.
It was pretty much it was I watched that set with the Decibel staff and our friends from Chemist, and we watched it from pretty much behind the soundboard at the Wiltern, and it was just like and I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but the whole experience of the 2018 Metal and Beer Fest in Los Angeles, it was really difficult and really trying. That was the first one we did outside of Philadelphia. So, we took our crew and had to try to replicate that on the West Coast and did not have, we were not on our home field, so to speak.
Yeah.
It was a venue that maybe wasn't as accommodating as what we are used to in Philadelphia, which ended up posing a lot of problems and creating a lot of frustration and anxiety. So it was, for me, that particular set held even more prominence and importance because it was this crescendo and this release of, everything that you do when you're building an event, booking it, building it, announcing it, promoting it, planning it, show weekend, show day, execution of it, and then that final, that crescendo, that high point, being that band doing those songs. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was just like, I was just like, just keep handing me drinks and let me just let me get me out, and it was great. And so it was just extra special in that sense,
That's absolutely amazing. I remember like getting basically like live texted from Scott through that, and I was just like stuck in the southern hemisphere. I was just like, fuck my life right now. Or I think at one point I was like, stop texting me. and I was just like, so hopefully, once everything clears up, I'll be able to see the next Metal and Beer Fest. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
I would love. When we're not on, I will give you what the dates are for the next one, with because you need to be there for the Harmony Collection.
Yeah, I was actually going to take like this visitor trip out to see the Harmony Corruption one, but as things got closer, I saw that like a bunch of stuff in my life and the virus were probably going to hit, and I was like, I don't need to be stuck somewhere right now. So
we'll save that for another day.
For sure. All right. Since you're a guy who keeps your finger on the pulse, just by nature of having probably the best magazine in the world for metal, what bands out there currently do you think deserve a lot more recognition or time of day that probably people aren't paying as much attention to?
It's a lot for me. I always end up falling back on doom bands when that kind of comes up. It's like, because for whatever reason, even the biggest doom bands aren't very big. And the irony, of course, being is that they're all just descendants of Black Sabbath, who are the biggest, most important metal band ever. But like for me, I would say that I look at it as like one band isn't even active, like Cathedral. Like to me, that's like a band that's still like, even though they've been done for probably 6-7 years now, like I feel like it's still like that they don't get, that name isn't looked at with the reverence that it probably should be for what they did and what they accomplished.
Yeah.
Just the how great and diverse the catalog is. So I see that. I see. I always stump for Paradise Lost, who still their recognition has been growing. I would say over the past decade or so, like they seem to get taken a bit more seriously than they had been before, but still not as important or as big as they should be, especially in America. Evoken, who
love that band.
I don't know how many times I've booked it. Like I've seen Evoken like 10 times, and I think it's because I booked them 9 of those 10 times. But and then I even think of things like this band called Godtrim, which is Hamish, who used to be in My Dying Bride, used to be in Solstice, and used to be in Valenfire. And they've got a debut album that's out on Profound Lore, which came out around February maybe. And it's doom metal, but it's like, I don't want to say it's like Peaceville 3 style doom metal, but like there's elements of that, the feel of it, like kind of almost like a 90s Yorkshire style kind of thing.
Right.
Like for me, when I always think about bands that like, I'm always like, why isn't this band bigger? 9 times out of 10, it's a doom band. And I don't know why, just because like, or maybe it's just my perception of like how big some bands really are. Maybe
I feel like the last decade belonged to the doom genre. Like, I don't know what happened, but like somewhere around end of 2009, like just doom exploded in terms of like its popularity. And
yeah,
like,
you mean stuff like Sun and Electric Wizard and Sleep and things like that, or
pretty much? But then like a whole like new generation of bands and like active bands. I felt like, forever it's been the kids chasing the HM2 pedals, but then after like 2009 it was like, and like it was the kids trying to find all the the Russian green muffs and shit like that, and all that sort of stuff, and it hasn't let up in that time, and But weirdly enough, it's Cathedral still seems, at least from my general thing, to be lower on the totem pole than they should be. They should be on the fucking top.
I mean, think about it from just like Forest of Equilibrium to Carnival Bazaar.
Yeah. And
like, it's like they have like, those are like 2 pillars of 2 different subgenres of doom.
Absolutely.
Right there. With a 5-year span.
Yeah.
And like,
the songs are completely different from album to album through that time. Like, it's just, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And like, I remember like really quizzing some Doom fan people in like the last decade, going like, what is it about Cathedral that like, you'll have the Electric Wizards or like, other bands like up the top, and they're like, I just thought that like Cathedral would sound better with like a vocalist like Ozzy. I'm like, no man, you got to think of Cathedral as like if Cal from Discharge decided to do Doom, because that's Lee's approach. Lee will forever carry the cadence of Cal, which is magic in and of itself. So
yeah, he's not Lee's not trying to be Ozzy.
Hell no.
And that's the thing. I do think that there's an element of that. It's like, oh, it's not the guy's not trying to be Ozzy. I don't get it. Not that like I don't know who Juz is trying to be from Electric Lizard other than a caricature of himself at this point. But
the question that I was sort of just getting to was, you know, you've sort of become like one of the biggest magazines around that serves out this music. Is there anyone that still is on the bucket list, or that you still feel like deserves a cover that's like slightly impossible to get? You know, you've had Metallica, which must have been incredible. Black Sabbath doesn't exist anymore. I don't think they ever made like an actual cover from memory.
Yeah.
So like what's left in terms of like the god tier, I guess, or someone that you really feel should?
I think that as far as covers, we have climbed all of those mountains, so to speak, but I think it's Hall of Fames, honestly,
right,
that are left to conquer. Like, there's no Iron Maiden Hall of Fame, and it's not for a lack of trying. We have a very good, really, really good relationship with that camp, but the way they operate, they don't really free up like 5 guys at a time or even overtime to do a Hall of Fame interview. And it's something that I have pursued with them for over a decade.
Right.
And I will go back because it's like, while we're all here, it's silly to not try.
Yeah.
And now that I think about it, dude, now is a pretty good time to try.
That's why I'm doing this. I'm like, this was not working initially in terms of scheduling and like trying to get people in a good mood, or like, no, I'm on tour, that sort of stuff. I'm like, we're all fucking locked down. No one's got an excuse.
Yeah, I can reach out to Camp Maiden, and I will do this on Monday, maybe even if not sooner, and just be like I have pursued this numerous times over the years and just has not worked out. But for me, it's more things like that where you're trying to get that story, like the idea of like the idea of an artist acquiescing to us and allowing us to put them on our cover isn't really interesting or appealing to me at this point in the game. I respect everybody who takes the time to do that, but there's nobody that I'm chasing, in that sense. Whereas for me, this is still a sense of like, can we get this story? For some of those Hall of Fame pieces, like, can we finally get this definitive story locked down while all of these members are available and in the pink, so to speak?
Yep.
Because with at the at the risk of sounding morbid, even like looking at like these Hall of Fame volumes that we've done now, we've done 2 of them.
Yep. And
I'm like, we're working on the 3rd one, which will be out this year. In every single one, there's Hall of Fames you could no longer execute because somebody who was a part of the recording just isn't here anymore.
Yeah.
So it's more chasing things like that, that I'm focused on. Like, while we're all here, while all these guys are all here, let's try to do this.
Yeah.
Because these are important documents. Like,
absolutely.
At the end of the day, it's just like, that's a legacy. It's not my legacy; it's their legacy. So it's like,
also the way that you do this is with such, at the risk of sounding like a bootlicker right now, it is with such care and reverence that it's not just like a flimsy piece going out. It's done really, really well. It's written so well, and the interviews that you got, you're not just piecemealing other shit together. You want a fresh interview right then and there, topic at hand, and I think it's like for a great cause, because some of these stories will go to the grave with people, and it's not even for lack of like that they're too salacious or juicy or whatever to put out into the world. It's like it's trying to find the right person to crack them open, you know, and trying to get through all the agents and everything. So
yeah, I agree. Like it is even about salacious, and it is an example. Like the Hall of Fame and the issue that's going to print not next week, but the week after, I guess. No, it's definitely not next week. Oh, it's in May. Yeah, it's not next week. Is Earth Crisis Destroy the Machines, and a less salacious bunch of young men than Earth Crisis in 1995 you will not find.
Yes.
But, I mean, despite them, advocating murder in certain situations, there's no sex, drugs, or rock and roll in that particular Hall of Fame. But it's a deeply intriguing story, and we're not looking for that stuff. Occasionally, it presents itself, and we will cover it as needed. But yeah, it really is. Trying to document the story of that record and the stipulations that we put in place, or that I put in place 16 years ago, about us needing to talk to everybody on the record to do the story.
Yeah.
They still stand. And it isn't because, and if a record isn't in the Hall of Fame, it isn't because it isn't a great record. It's just because we couldn't do the story justice.
Yeah.
And I don't want to half-ass it. So yeah, it really is us. Like it's because we do hold those records in that high of regard, that we want to get everything right and have every perspective presented. Otherwise, it's like, why do what everyone else has kind of done to this point?
Truly. Well, that's a really cool perspective on it. That it's less about the actual covers and more about getting a good history snapshot on the records that really mean something from their discography. So that's pretty cool. There's a whole bunch of like shorter questions now to take it out, because I don't want to kill all your night. You probably have to wake up to the Rugrats in like 6 hours by the time we get off here. So
I got like 7, and they're still beer in the glass.
Still beer in the glass. I guess you're, I think, probably about a decade older than me, and you probably got to see a lot of the glory era of at least the extreme stuff sort of coming around. What's your like most memorable shows that you ever got to like sort of witness through like that time? Were you able to see like the Carcass and Death tour when it first hit the shores around like what, 90?
I'd have been 15. I wouldn't have been allowed to go to that.
Yeah.
It's funny though, because like whoever you talk to, like there'll be shows that I saw in the early 90s that for me will be like those kind of legendary defining moments. Whereas if you talk to somebody like, Scott Carlson, just as an example, who's a few years older than me, you'll get like the spend a night in jail with Guns N' Roses story. Like,
that's an amazing story.
Yeah. So like they're to different people, there's different stuff. And like the things that I saw in like, 1991 or 1992, he's not going to give a fuck about. So I think it really, I don't think anything that I saw is genuinely more special than, anything that maybe you saw in like 1997 or something. Do you know what I mean? Like for me, like
no,
there's definitely
you
things
guys got to see a gazillion worlds worth of like amazing shit. Australia got nothing.
Yeah. We're going to die so much sooner than you, so it all balances out. But I don't know. When I try to think of some of the things that I saw, I mean, I think about funny things like that I saw Pantera in 1992 open up for Skid Row.
Wow.
And
because they were still duking it out around that time, right?
Yeah. And I went specifically to see just Pantera.
Right.
And it was literally like the fucking second, like the note, like the last note was like hanging on whatever riff Dimebag had played, and it was like off in the distance. I just remember me and my friends like turning around, like, all right, let's go, let's get out of here, you know. And like 44-year-old me, like I would today if like Skid Row, like circa 1992, were playing, like yeah, I'd go to that. I'd want to see that.
Hell yeah,
you know,
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, like, yeah, sign me up for that. But like, you know, like kid who was just like, cause like I like Pantera in '92, but I was into like, you know, I was into death metal and other weird stuff in '92 too. So it was like, but I wasn't into whatever Skid Row had going on in 1992. And again, it was, you know, that's just youthful I was naive. So like, I mean, as far as things like, I mean, I definitely saw some things. Like I remember seeing Dillinger Escape Plan in 1998 when their old singer Dimitri still breathed fire. They closed with a cover of Rain and Blood, and they only played half of it before it just stopped. Like, I mean, you know, it's like I shit like that.
That's such
like, you know, like I've definitely seen Dillinger more with Dimitri than I did with Greg when they were around, just as an example.
Right.
I mean, it's more like things that I saw that weren't necessarily even great things, but like in the context of what would happen later, they became interesting. Like, I saw Godflesh in 1996 play in front of about 20 people.
Really?
And yeah. And I didn't see them again until Jay Bennett and I were at Hellfest together in France in 2010 for their reunion show in front of thousands of fucking people. So, and we kept in touch with Dustin over the years, and it was just like, I was like, dude, do you realize the last time I saw you was at that show in Pennsylvania that you played in '96, where you were literally talking to me from the stage, like just like on the side of the stage saying you didn't want to go on at all for this show this time. And I was like, yeah, like people here, so you should probably do it.
Yeah.
But like it's more like things like that where it's contextual, you know.
Yeah.
For me, like that idea that it's contextual for me personally, where I'm like, man, I was a dumb kid and I should have stuck around for Skid Row because that could be a good memory.
Yeah.
And the idea of, oh, I was watching these bands that I cared about when at a time when clearly nobody else gave a fuck, but like I got to experience them at this low, and then the next thing I get to experience with them is at this like high. And like for me, it's things like that. Like, you know, I mean, I was at. Well, there's things I remember. Like I was. You were at the Carcass Decibel tour in 2014 when we played Best Buy.
Yeah. And
I was there in 2008 for the Carcass reunion show.
Right.
And that was also at Best Buy, and that was such a big deal to me because I had, you know, become friends with Jeff while Carcass was inactive, and I had seen this. I had just watched this just turn to where it became a thing again. So things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like that's a cool thing. And like that's not even necessarily back in the day. That's just 12 years ago. But that's just like, you know, something that like resonates with me because I felt like part of that experience, you know.
Absolutely.
Like this is my friend who would like.
Absolutely.
Like Another funny Jeff anecdote was I remember we were. This was like, I think my wife and I, we stayed with him and his girlfriend at the time at their place in Liverpool in like 2004. And I forget where we were at, but we went to some show where there were metal bands playing. This is like in Liverpool. And like, I just remember somebody came up to him and was talking to him about the bands. And he just said something to him. He just said something like to the effect of like, "Don't you know who I used to be?" And it's just like I think I just think of little moments kind of like that, which I was privy to, which resonate just because they're so fucking funny.
I could just imagine him doing that, and just that's almost like Jeff to me is almost like Larry David in a couple of ways, and that seems like a very Larry David moment.
Yeah, no, there's definitely an element to that. I mean, again, look, it's not far removed. The Seinfeld related answering machine is all coming together.
It's full circle. Like, God damn it.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I ask either a Neurosis or a Metallica question for people depending on their age. But did you ever get to see Neurosis through Silver and Blood tour?
I did.
And so what, that particular record and that band for me. There's like a line. There's a clear line in the sand when it comes to like extreme music and that record. What was your take on seeing that Neurosis at that time for that record in the context of everything that you had seen with thrash, death, black, and everything? What was it like to get hit with that?
Well, for me in Neurosis, it was I didn't really get into them until they signed to Relapse. Because I knew the name, but I didn't know a whole lot about them. Right. So I got the promo through Silver and Blood in 96, and that was just like a pretty significant game changer for me. I think I'm pretty sure I got it was that promo along with Amorphous Elegy. It was like they were just like, I think maybe they came out on the same day or something. They were essentially in the same promo path. But this was also when I just started becoming a journalist or a writer professionally, in 96 when I was like 21 and just like trying to like beat the door down. So what Neurosis was doing, like that just like grabbed me, and I didn't get to see them until 1997 when they were on the Ozzfest in the States.
Right.
They were playing the second stage, and I was determined to go. I knew the only things that I desperately wanted to see were 3 bands, which is ridiculous because there were plenty of other things worth watching. But the 3 bands that I wanted to see were Neurosis, Fear Factory, and Typo Negative.
Right.
But keep in mind, Pantera were on that tour. Yep. I mean, I'd seen Pantera 5 years previously, walked out the second they were done.
Yep.
But this time in 1997, the second that Typo Negative was done, and before Pantera were coming on, I walked out. Wow. So like, just think about like, just, I mean, in both scenarios, I'm the asshole. Like, it all like, it checks out.
But times and attitudes are changing. Like, there's so much going on. I'm sure that you're just like, it's just everything's moving.
Yeah. I mean, I recognize it now, but like, I mean, I left before Pantera, I left before Ozzy, and I left before Black Sabbath.
Wow. Yeah.
But I was that deep into my beliefs where I'm just like, all right, I've seen what I've seen, it's over, let's get out of here. But but it was really all about Neurosis, and with Neurosis playing the second stage, so they were playing like a tinier like parking lot area, and I knew they were going to go over most people's heads there, because the second stage was just like stuff like Coal Chamber and Drain STH and maybe Vision Disorder were on it. I don't remember. I mean, that would have been cool to see that. But like, they were completely different than everything else. They played 3 songs that I remember, and all 3 were from Silver and Blood.
Yeah.
Locust Star, I, and shit, I don't remember what the third one was, but it was definitely Locust Star and I.
Yeah.
It was, they delivered, they just crushed. I knew they would be great. They crushed everybody, but I don't know who or what they won over in 1997 in the Ozzfest parking lot. Because I do remember like that being the Ozzfest parking lot of 1997 in Camden, New Jersey was very much what you would expect it to be. Let's just put it that way.
Well,
so
a war zone before anything else, really.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So I did see Neurosis. Did I see Neurosis in their devastating element? No, but I have seen them in other situations. In fact, I saw them a year later. There was this Relapse showcase gig in Philadelphia in 1998, and it was, get ready for this fucking lineup. It was Dillinger Escape Plan, Coalesce, Nile, Unsane, and Neurosis. This is November 1998. And Neurosis playing all of Times of Grace 6 months before it comes out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Because that record is still the hardest listen for me. Like, but to have to actually stand there and digest it all, fuck me. Holy shit.
Yeah, not a note of it. Yeah, the whole, and it was like they played for an hour and a half, or maybe an hour and 40 minutes. So they were playing extended versions of things.
Wow.
And like stuff that didn't make the final cut or stuff that was work in progress. But yeah, Relapse did two showcase gigs like that in '98, and I think there was one in Philly, and maybe there was one in New York, and they swapped somebody out of the lineup, and I can't remember who. Like maybe Today Is the Day got swapped in for Nile or something at some point. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like that was the lineup at the TLA in Philadelphia in November of '98. So, and I mean, I've seen Neurosis multiple times since then, obviously.
Yeah.
But those were the two. That's the one that stands out more than, in particular, that's the one that stands out more than any other one, that show in '98.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, just to hear stuff like that, because again, that stuff gets lost in the sands of time, man. Yeah. Let's go to some fun, easy questions to take it out. Three records people wouldn't guess that you love, and I put in parentheses there, The Darkness.
Darkness, Permission to Land.
Yeah, one of the greatest records of all time, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think it's it's maybe the best rock album of the past 15 years, 16 years now. I just start to finish, incredible.
Yeah.
And I agree with you in the sense that everything since then is not on the level of that. But I implore you that there are moments of greatness on the two records after that.
Yeah.
But after that, everything else is just stays far away. But like there are moments of awesomeness on the two after that. But
The second one, One Way Ticket to Hell, was I still listen to that all the way through. I love that record too.
I haven't quite all the way through, but that's like I honestly think that the moments on the reunion one, Hotcakes, the high points on that one are higher to me than the high points on One Way Ticket. I think One Way Ticket is probably more consistent in that sense when you were just even talking about how you get all through it. But I think that the high points of Hotcakes are higher for me.
Yeah, I gotta go back and revisit that. So any other two records?
I'll give you the path, like 5 or 6 songs to go to on Hotcakes. Just trust me. The other stuff that I like that people like. I mean, I'm looking over at my CD rack, which I still have CD racks. I mean, I see like 7 or 8 Cure records from here. I see the first 2 Tori Amos records. I see every single Bad Religion record. Maybe that isn't that crazy, but I loved Bad Religion, like every record, even the crappy ones without Brett Gurewitz. I like those. I mean, I liked a lot of Brit pop.
Cool.
I liked not just like obviously like Blur and Oasis, but like even shit like like Supergrass and things like that.
Yeah.
That
stuff.
It's fun.
Yeah.
I like some of the shoegaze bands a lot, like the heavier ones, like Catherine Wheel. I liked a ton. I like Radiohead pretty much through OK Computer.
Yep.
That's it. Then I'm out. I don't have time for their bullshit after that. There's a bunch of PJ Harvey records I can see. There's some Godspeed You Black Emperor.
Cool.
There's Fugazi records. But that rack ends at J, so I can't see what's
that's a pretty good list of stuff that people wouldn't guess that you dig that people should, especially PJ Harvey. I think I've seen her like 3 times live, and every time it's just like spellbound. It's like, God damn, that's a rock show right there.
I never got to see her live, unfortunately. I got to see Tori Amos back when she was still really good on 94 Under the Pink tour at the Tower Theater in Philadelphia.
Right.
Where I saw Faith No More. Like 95. I don't know. I'm trying to think. There's like, I'm sure there's other. Elliott Smith. I like a lot of Elliott Smith's early stuff. I don't know. I'm just trying. Afghan Wigs first, like before they broke up. All of the reunion records, I guess, were okay.
What about Nick A. Anderson rock? Are you a Nick A. Anderson rock guy?
Oh, I like the Helicopters up through Rock Is Dead, because let's not try to pretend like Rock Is Dead is any good.
Oh man, me and Ova are definitely on the opposite end of the spectrum. We like the last 3, as opposed to the initial 2 or 3.
Oh, see, no, I love High Visibility and By the Grace of God. I love those records.
Yeah.
Rock Is Dead just never got that. There's something about I can't remember something about. There's some single about TV or something on.
Oh yeah, everything's on TV. I have the picture disc of that somewhere.
Yeah, no, I like the early stuff. I've enjoyed the last 2 Lucifer records that he clearly wrote. What's the other Imperial?
Oh, Imperial
thing?
State Electric. I love all those records. That's like one thing that I think I introduced to the Black Breath dudes, because I don't think they'd been hearing it, or it really doesn't hit anyone's radars unless you're really following it.
Right.
And I showed it to them, and then like fucking those guys just became the biggest fans.
No, I dig that. Dinosaur Jr. I like a lot of the like old guy kind of like stuff that came out of like punk and hardcore and then turned into more listenable stuff, like like Ian MacKaye stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, if it's like me, if it started out noisy and then got progressively more laid back.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, the second last question I have: favorite Dan Seagrave art other than this.
Yeah, that.
What is the one album cover that you think stands maybe beyond the others?
I think it's Clandestine for me.
I think so too.
I think Clandestine has
The level of detail in that is just unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's everything that he's kind of working towards those first like few years of when he starts stuff. Like if you don't count like the Metal Duck stuff, and you just like if you just start with Altars of Madness and go from there.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like the like where everything of the classic era kind of comes together in a cool way. And I feel like there's like elements of what he had done previously, and there's elements of what he's going to do in the future. For me, I think it's Clandestine. Although it's hard not to shake the visual of whether it's like an ever-flowing stream or Left Hand Path or Altars of Madness. It's just like those things are just kind of like ingrained.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's probably the one for me. And I love what he's done since then. I love a lot of the just non-music stuff, like his Tower series that he's done, and like all this other work. And obviously, I'm partial to what he did for Choosing Death, because that was very specific. That is where it was. It's not necessarily an homage to the early death metal stuff, but it's supposed to be some kind of like origin story to it. I mean, the actual title of the painting is Origins of Madness.
Yep.
So it's like, so it's just, that's still, that's mind blowing in and of itself. But like, I think Clandestine for me.
That's awesome. And just to put it out there, when I was following him and when he started posting little snippets of the Choosing Death artwork and saying like, hey, I'm sort of like taking some old ideas and kind of putting a collage of sorts together. I was like, what motherfucker is like asking him to do this? This seems like sacrilegious. And then when it came to show that it was you, I was like, oh, well, that's fine. That's fine.
It doesn't. I mean, it's been a few years since it's been out, but it still doesn't get old.
No.
When I look at it and like know that like Dan did that it does not get old. It's crazy, nuts. I have over here. There is this is my office. There's a shelf here.
Yep.
See if I can get it in the shot here. There is. You can probably make out a few books there that are Choosing Death related, and it is. It's like it's not a very high shelf. So I have a 5-year-old son who all of a sudden has taken an interest in Choosing Death and has lots of questions about Choosing Death, and has even decided to make his own pocketbook version of Choosing Death, which we left on my desk.
That's amazing. That's so cool.
I was trying to figure out, like, what is this? Like, what is he? It's not like I'm like sitting around the dinner table talking about this book. But like, this is like eye level for a 5-year-old. Like when you're walking, when you're on the corner, just like, boom, you're just hit with it, and it's like, what is all this? So like, the questions came. So he he would ask me about the cover, and like I tell him like this guy Dan Seagrave, this awesome guy. And anyway, where this is going is on the other side of this shelf here. This is a room divider,
right?
And on the other side of it is really a guest room,
right?
But on that shelf, I have just like random bits of ephemera, and one of them is this like small 8x5. Just pencil drawing that Dan did for me. I don't know if he did it for me. He just did it. It was like part of something he was working on. But when he sent me a package, it was in the package.
Wow.
And it was just like, oh, it's fucking awesome. So I just put it on the shelf because it's like this Dan Seagrave original. And anyway, so during the weekend is the time when we try to get the children to do chores. So like last Saturday, my son is like trying to dust the shelf the other side, and he knocks over the Dan Seagrave piece, like the 5x8 original piece, and he knocked down. He's like, "Oh, Daddy, sorry." And I picked it up, and I forgot it was there even. I picked it up. I'm like, "Oh, Rowan, you know what this is?" I was like, "You know who drew this?" I'm like, "Dan Seagrave." And he's like, my son's like 5. And he just stops. He goes, "Oh, you mean the guy who did Choosing Death?"
There you go. It's in the blood now.
I was just like, that's not exactly how that's not the first thing that I think of on his portfolio, but yes, it's also the guy who did that. But it was adorable and cute. And yeah, it's just, again,
that's amazing how life ties in like that.
Yeah.
The last question that I'm going to hit you so I can let you go is, what are 3 Decibel issues that people should seek out to own? If you thought that for any particular reason they were pillars or landmarks or just great time capsules.
I mean, for me, it's like the themed issues might be interesting places to start. Well, here's what I'd say. We do an annual special issue every year. And we've done it for like 10 years now. And I guess depending on like what the year is, it sometimes dictates what the special issue is. Like last year we did a top 100 albums of the decade special issue. But 2 years before that, I decided to do an entire special issue dedicated to Napalm Death. And that issue is one of my favorite things that we ever did because it's very just like super over the top, like in the weeds coverage of Napalm Death from every angle you can imagine. We released a flexi disc of an unreleased Napalm Death song that comes with the issue. There's a Hall of Fame on Code is Red Lung, Lives the Code in that one. Shane goes through and ranks like all the Napalm Death albums.
When you did the ranking, oh my, the ranking was like, I was like, wow, like Shane is going into detail, and like that's a lot to ask for someone of their baby per se. Like I just thought that one was so cool. Like when that dropped, I was like, fuck, awesome. Especially because I'm like a giant Napalm nerd.
Right, like if you're a fan, if you're even a cursory fan, you can learn an insane amount of stuff. And if you're a super fan, you'll still learn a ton of stuff. And it's such a great piece. I'm really proud of that. Our Neurosis issue that we did in 2016, which was the first time that we did it was the first time we ever did an issue dedicated to a single band. And, we've had a really good relationship with them. Steve has been a friend of mine for a long time, Scott as well. And we have always liked working with them. And I always wanted to do Hall of Fames on them, like on Neurosis. And they had a policy for ages that only Scott and Steve would do interviews. And they were just always like, dude, it's nothing personal. Like, this is just a band policy. Nobody else is going to do stuff. And I guess it was in 2016, they were coming up on the 30th anniversary of the band. And Steve and I would trade emails every once in a while. And he was telling me that like they were thinking about loosening up some of their previous guidelines that they had as a band for the 30th anniversary. And I'm like, so are you saying that like we could actually execute in Neurosis Hall of Fame finally? And he was like, I think we could probably do it. And then it became to me, it's like, Jesus Christ, what record do we do? And then I thought, let's do Enemy of, or I'm sorry, let's do Times of Grace, Through Silver and Blood, and my God, I'm spacing on the record from not the one before Enemy of the Sun. I can't even think of the name of it now.
Souls at Zero.
No. Souls at Zero, yeah. Souls at Zero, and Scott was like, Steve was like, oh, maybe we can do them like 3 months in a row, like do one, do another one, and then do another 3 months in a row. I'm like, dude, fuck that. Let's do an entire Neurosis issue and put all of them in the same issue. And I was like, let's make the entire issue just like all Neurosis. He's like, are you serious? I'm like, yes, let's do it. And like, I was like, did you have any, like, can we do a flexi disc, like, of something? And he's like, well, I have an unreleased demo of Locust Star. And I was like, are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
And like, he dug it up and they cleaned it up, and that was the unreleased 1995 version of Locust Star demo. Have you ever heard it? Do you have that issue?
I don't think I ever got that issue because I was moving at the time.
Yeah. I'll look and see if there's any. I mean, it's been sold out for ages.
Yeah,
I'll see.
I need to get that issue. I just remember my life was like stupid busy at that time.
I may have to send you the MP3 of the demo version of Locust Star, because we never released it like digitally. We just like put it on. It was like I didn't want it. I just wanted it to exist like that.
Yeah.
But it is so fucking. It's ridiculous.
Was it like a rehearsal demo, or was it like they went to the studio to quickly track it for a demo, or?
It was a studio recording.
Wow.
So it's like
it's
big. It's big.
I'm excited.
So that. And then honestly, I would say like just the what I was talking about earlier. I'm like super stoked on this 1995 yearbook issue, because it's like it's the thing we're working on right now, and it's like it's just been really fun and borderline escapist for everything that's happening right now to kind of to revisit this year and kind of get in that headspace of 25 years ago, especially for me who, I was 20 then. I was 19 or 20, so it was like it was still a really formative time for me, and the whole like I said, the whole process of like emulating the style of Terrorizer with the layouts and just going over the top with the whole thing. It's been fun, and there just hasn't been a lot of fun lately. Yeah. So that's the one that I would pick right now.
Sweet.
I mean, it might change. It could change, but like as far as like three, those are three that like are very distinct.
Yeah.
So I think those they also speak to really like what we do and what we're all about.
Absolutely. Well, I couldn't have asked for a better answer and a better array of answers for this whole thing. So thank you so much for taking the 2.5 hours to do this. Like it's been awesome, and to speak this much and this broadly about things has been awesome and unfiltered and everything like that. It's just super cool. So I hope everyone out there picks up a copy of Choosing Death and gets stuck into this 1995 issue that's coming out of Decibel, because I would personally like to know more about. Hopefully there's some tidbits of Destroy, Erase, Improve in there, and the Somberlane perhaps. They're two records that aren't very documented, so any more light that can be shed on the time around those things would be amazing. So